Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Li Lao. Today we are going to talk about poetry. Poetry is the earliest form of literature. It has been extremely important in Chinese culture and social life throughout the history. The earliest Chinese literary works is Shi Jing, or classic of poetry, a compilation of poetic works dating back as early as 11th century BC. The highest literary achievement in history is the Tang Poetry, around 8th century AD. Even though novel became popular in later days in Ming and Qing dynasties, but many poems can still be found here and there in a novel and make an important and inseparable part of the novel. Poetry was included in the imperial examination, an essential part of education. So in fact, all intellectuals and scholars were poets in ancient China. Many Chinese emperors were also poets. The most productive emperor was Qianlong in Qing dynasty in 18th century. It composed of total 43,630 poems in his life. That means 2 poems each day in average. Wow! Poetry has a huge impact on Chinese social life at all levels. Today, the influence of poetry is everywhere and on everybody. Chengyu, the 4-character idioms, are frequently used in modern Chinese. They are mostly derived from classic poetry. As a result, daily language is full of poetic elements. In Chinese names, no Peter, no John, or other saints' names, but a lot of names were picked from verses of classic poems. Chinese kids are encouraged to recite poems from very early age, even before they really understand them. And no exception, Arabella, Donald Trump's granddaughter, started to learn Chinese by reciting classic poems. Poetry is not something highbrow. It is popular just like pop music. Besides many professional poets, there are a great number of amateur poets. You may find one among your family members or relatives, your neighbors, classmates, co-workers. A lot of amateur poets publish their poetic works in social media and internet platforms. A demonstration can also be done with poetry. On April 5, 1976, triggered by the death of Premier Zhou Enlai, a mass gathering and demonstration took place at Tiananmen Square, protesting the ruling Gang of 4. People recited loudly their poetic works in public, or posted their poems on the wall of the monument to people's heroes. Over 600 poems were collected, and a compilation was published a few years later. Wow! A poetex with poetry. Probably the only one in the world. Look at the demonstration taking place somewhere else. Protesting with one simple word. Another form of poetry can be found everywhere in China, 对联 or couplet. You can see them in imperial palace, temples, public buildings, gardens, monuments. What is couplet? Here is a simple example. A day, the sun rises in the east, the moon sets in the west. During the Spring Festival, the couplets in red are put on the top and both sides of the doors of many families. And the best educated person in a village will be selected to write couplets for their fellow villagers. It is an important part of the Chinese New Year's activities. If you ever travel in China, you should notice that slogans are everywhere. In busy city downtown area, tall buildings, along highways or railways, even in a remote village. This is unique in the world. Slogans are actually related to poetry. It can be considered as a derivative of a poetry tradition. This is a picture taken a few days ago at the entrance of the National College entrance exam site. The slogan says, "Being born in the year of SARS and taking the exam in the year of COVID-19, you are destined to be outstanding." A recent television show called Chinese Poetry Congress, a competition show on Chinese Central Television, became very hot and attracted a total of 500 million viewers, making it the most watched television show of the year. Wow! A show on poetry can be the number one in audience rating. Chairman Mao was also a great poet. His many poems are well known in China. The most famous one is Snow. He composed in 1936. This is the poem I love a lot as well. But he might go too far when he wrote his Bird Q&A in 1965. Stop farting. Look, the world will be turned upside down. Poetry is a religion of Chinese people, but we do not mean poetry is a narrowly defined religion, but an art of great importance to Chinese people. Generally speaking, Chinese people have no religious faith, but poetry is probably a substitution. Thank you for watching. See you next time.